The mining drone beeped 3 times as it returned to the Defiance, carrying another load of rare minerals from the icy asteroid. Captain Arya Elias watched from the bridge, a small smile on her face. The mission was going well. Too well, perhaps. Another successful extraction, Captain, reported Officer Tran from the science station. At this rate, we'll finish 2 days ahead of schedule. Elias nodded, her short dark hair framing a face weathered by 15 years in deep space. She was about to respond when the ship's sensors blared a warning. "Unidentified vessels approaching," called out Lieutenant Park, her fingers flying across the tactical display. 5 ships, big ones. Elias straightened in her chair. "Origin?" "Unknown, but their engine signatures are—" Park paused, eyes widening. "Captain, they match Vexitari patterns." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Everyone knew what that meant. The Vexitari served as enforcers for the Galactic Council, the ancient coalition of advanced species that controlled most of known space. Humans had never been welcomed as equals in that coalition, merely tolerated on the edges of galactic society. "They're surrounding us," Park said quietly. Elias tapped her chair console. "All hands battle stations. Recall all mining drones immediately." She turned to her communications officer. "Any messages?" "Nothing yet. Wait." The young officer pressed a hand to his earpiece. "Incoming transmission audio only." "Put it through," Elias ordered. A sound like grinding crystals filled the bridge, followed by words in strangely accented English. "Defiance vessel, Captain Arya Elias. You will receive our envoy. This is not a request." Before Elias could respond, the transmission cut off. The crew exchanged worried glances. "Options?" Elias asked, looking to Commander Wei, her second-in-command and oldest friend. The tall, gray-haired man frowned. "We could try to run, but Vexitari ships are faster than anything we have. Fighting is suicide." "We're in neutral space, Dr. Lakshmi," Patel pointed out from her science station. The xenobiologist rarely involved herself in tactical discussions. "They have no legal right to board us." "I don't think they care about legal rights, Doctor," said Marcus Chen. The former intelligence officer now served as the ship's diplomat, though this situation seemed well beyond diplomacy. The ship shuddered as a bright light flashed outside the viewports. A small crystal vessel had appeared, hovering just 50 meters from the Defiance. "They've launched a shuttle," Park reported. Elias stood up. "I'll meet them in the docking bay. Wei, you have the bridge." "Captain," Wei began to protest. "If I don't come back in 30 minutes, get the ship out of here however you can," she said firmly. "That's an order." The being that emerged from the crystal shuttle was not what Elias expected. Rather than the hulking warriors of Vexitari legend, she faced a slender humanoid figure with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed blue. It wore no visible weapons or armor, just a simple gray robe. "Captain Arya Elias," it stated, in that same crystal-grinding voice. "I am Sentinel. I bring the summons." Elias crossed her arms. Security officers flanked her, hands near their weapons. "What summons?" "The Galactic Council requires your presence on Nexus Prime. Immediately." Cold feelings settled in Elias's stomach. No human had ever been called before the full council. "On what grounds?" she demanded. "To answer for humanity's transgressions." The Sentinel tilted its head. "You will comply." "What transgressions?" Elias pressed. "We have followed all treaties and agreements." "That is not for me to explain." "You will appear before the Council in 7 rotations. Transport will be provided." The Sentinel extended a hand, offering a small crystal. "Your formal summons." Reluctantly, Elias took it. The crystal was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with inner light. "If you fail to appear," the Sentinel continued, "consequences will follow. Not just for you, but for all human settlements." With that, it turned and re-entered its shuttle. "This is madness." Admiral Kobayashi's hologram flickered in Elias's office. "The Council has never summoned a human captain before. It must be a trap." After the Sentinel's departure, Elias had immediately contacted Earth Command. The news was not taken well. "I agree," Elias said, "but their threats against human settlements can't be ignored." "Captain Elias," Kobayashi leaned forward, her aged face serious. "Your orders are to return to Earth space immediately. We'll handle this diplomatically." Elias shook her head. "With respect, Admiral, I don't think diplomacy is what they want. Besides, my ship is closer to Nexus Prime than any other human vessel. If we run, they'll just send their enforcers after someone else. This isn't your burden to bear, Arya. Maybe not, but I'm the one they called." Elias looked down at the crystal pulsing on her desk. "Something bigger is happening here, I can feel it." The Admiral was silent for a long moment. "You always were stubborn." "I learned from the best." Elias smiled briefly, remembering her early days under Kobayashi's command. "If you're determined to go, at least don't take your full crew into danger." Elias nodded. "Already planned. I'll take a skeleton crew. Just Wei, Dr. Patel, and Chen. The rest will transfer to the supply ship Horizon when it rendezvous with us tomorrow. And if it's a trap, then we'll deal with it," Elias said simply. Kobayashi sighed. "Very well, but no, this isn't official. On record, you're disobeying orders." "I understand." As the Admiral's hologram flickered out, Elias picked up the crystal. Its pulsing seemed to match her heartbeat. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Commander Wei stepped in, his usual calm demeanor unchanged despite the crisis. "The crew is asking questions. They know something's wrong." "Tell them the truth," Elias said. "They deserve that much." Wei sat across from her. "You know this could be a one-way trip." "I know." "Then why go?" Elias was quiet for a moment, organizing her thoughts. "In 200 years, they've never seen us as equals. They've restricted our expansion, limited our technology, kept us on the fringes. Maybe it's time someone asked why. And that someone has to be you? They called me, old friend." She smiled wryly. "Besides, someone once told me that leadership means facing the hard choices so others don't have to." Wei chuckled, softly. "Using my own words against me." Elias stood and moved to the viewport, looking out at the crystalline Vextari ships that still surrounded them. "Set course for Nexus Prime," she said firmly. "If the Council wants to see a human captain, then that's exactly what they'll get." Just before the Defiance made its first jump toward Nexus Prime, a final message came through from Admiral Kobayashi. "The Council believes they've summoned a captain. Show them they've awakened a species." Elias read those words and felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just about one ship or one captain anymore. Whatever awaited her at Nexus Prime would change everything. For her, for humanity, for the galaxy itself. With determination in her eyes, Captain Arya Elias gave the order to jump. The Defiance emerged from its final jump with a flash of light. For a moment, silence filled the bridge as the crew stared at the massive structure floating in the darkness of space. "My God," whispered Dr. Patel. "It's beautiful." Nexus Prime wasn't a planet but a giant ring, at least the size of Earth's orbit around the sun. It glowed with soft blue light, spinning slowly against the backdrop of stars. Unlike anything humans had built, it needed no star for energy. It created its own through means beyond human understanding. "Life signs?" Captain Elias asked, her voice steady despite the awe she felt. "Billions," replied Lieutenant Park. "The sensors can't even count them all. Thousands of different species." Marcus Chen stood beside Elias, his diplomatic training, helping him hide his nervousness. "The seat of power for over 3,000 years, he said quietly. "No human has ever been invited inside." "We weren't invited," Commander Wei reminded him. "We were summoned." A new voice spoke from the communications system. "Vessel Defiance, this is Nexus Prime Control. Follow the guide lights to Docking Bay 447 Alpha. Deviations will not be tolerated." Small blue lights appeared in space, creating a path toward the massive ring. "Follow the lights, Lieutenant," Elias ordered. Nice and easy. As they approached, the true scale of Nexus Prime became clear. The Defiance, a ship that seemed huge in Earth's orbit, was less than a speck against the ring's surface. Countless ships of all shapes and sizes moved around it, forming complex patterns like a dance. Look at that. Dr. Patel pointed to a nearby vessel that resembled a giant jellyfish. That's a Mithrai bioship. I've only seen pictures. The docking bay swallowed them easily, large enough to hold 50 ships the size of the Defiance. As the ship settled into place, mechanical arms extended to secure it. Power down engines but keep life support and essential systems running, Elias instructed. Wei, you have the bridge. Dr. Patel, Chen, you're with me. Captain, Wei said, concern in his eyes. Are you sure you don't want security personnel? Elias shook her head. The message was clear, just me. I'm bringing these two for their expertise, but I won't risk provoking the council with armed guards. The airlock hissed open, revealing a tall, slender being waiting for them. She, if the term applied, had pale blue skin that seemed almost transparent. 6 dark eyes were arranged in a circle on her face, and she wore flowing silver robes. I am Vela of the Mithrai, she said in perfect English. I will guide you during your stay on Nexus Prime. Captain Arya Elias. Elias introduced herself, then gestured to her companions. Dr. Lakshmi Patel, our xenobiologist, and Marcus Chen, our diplomatic officer. Vela's eyes blinked in sequence. Only you are summoned, Captain. They are my advisors, Elias said firmly. Where I go, they go. For a moment, Vela was silent, her eyes shifting colors slightly. Then she nodded. Very well. The Council permits this, follow me. The hallways of Nexus Prime were unlike anything they had seen. The walls seemed alive, shifting colors and patterns. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved about, some with multiple limbs, others floating without visible means of support, some that seemed made of light or gas rather than solid matter. The council session begins tomorrow, Vela explained as they walked. Tonight you will rest and prepare. I must instruct you on proper protocol. What exactly am I charged with? Elias asked. All will be explained before the council, Vela replied smoothly. For now, focus on protocol. When addressing the High Council, you must use specific words of respect. As they were led deeper into the station, Elias noticed something troubling. The few humans they passed, perhaps 20 in total, all worked in what seemed like menial jobs, cleaning, carrying items, or performing simple maintenance. None held positions of authority. Not many humans here, she commented. Your species is young, Vela said without turning. Barely 2 centuries of faster-than-light travel. The founding races have existed for millions of years. They arrived at a door that opened to reveal comfortable but simple quarters. Rest here, Vela instructed. Tomorrow, I will return to prepare you for your audience. You must cleanse yourselves and wear the provided garments. She turned to leave, then paused. One final instruction, Captain. When you enter the council chamber, you will approach the center platform. There you must kneel and touch your forehead to the floor. This is not optional. All beings acknowledge the council's authority this way. After Vela left, Chen let out a long breath. Did you notice? Every other species we passed either ignored us or looked at us with pity, like we're already condemned. Dr. Patel was examining the room with scientific curiosity. This technology is incredible. These walls contain living cells, yet they're also mechanical. Elias wasn't listening. She was looking out the window at the endless curve of Nexus Prime, thinking about Vela's final instruction. I need to learn more, she said suddenly. Chen, use your diplomatic credentials. See if you can find anyone willing to talk about why we're really here. And me? Asked Dr. Patel. Learn everything you can about this place, especially its weaknesses. Hours later, as the station's artificial day cycle dimmed to night, they regrouped in their quarters. The news wasn't good. I spoke with representatives from 7 different species, Chen reported. Most wouldn't say much, but I found a pattern. This isn't about any specific action Earth has taken. It's about a prophecy. A prophecy? Elias raised an eyebrow. The Seers of Zol, one of the founding races. They're said to be able to see possible futures. According to what I heard, they've predicted that humans will challenge council authority within the next century. Dr. Patel added, the station's design enforces the hierarchy. The 12 founding races occupy the highest levels. New species like us are kept at the bottom. Literally. We're on level 87 of 100. Elias was about to respond when a soft chime indicated someone at their door. She nodded to Chen, who carefully opened it. Outside stood a tall, reptilian being with golden scales and amber eyes. Unlike Vela's flowing robes, this visitor wore what looked like armor. I am Krell of the Draconid Collective, the being said in a rumbling voice. May I enter? What I have to say shouldn't be overheard. After a moment's hesitation, Elias nodded. The door closed behind Krell, who studied each of them before speaking. Captain, do you know why my people aren't on the High Council despite being spacefaring for 50,000 years? Without waiting for an answer, he continued, because we refused to accept permanent subservience. We fought a war against the Council, and lost. Why are you telling me this? Elias asked. Krell's amber eyes fixed on her. Because many species chafe under founder rule. The middle tiers, the newcomers, were all kept in our place. Tomorrow they'll demand you kneel not just physically but metaphorically. They'll demand humanity accept limits on its growth forever. And if I refuse? Krell's scaled face couldn't smile, but his eyes brightened. That's the interesting question, isn't it? They don't fear what humanity has done, Captain Elias. They fear what humanity might become. After Krell left, Elias stood at the window for a long time, watching the endless activity of Nexus Prime. Tomorrow she would face the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and she had a decision to make. What are you thinking, Captain? Dr. Patel asked, joining her at the window. Elias thought about Admiral Kobayashi's final message, about the humans she'd seen working menial jobs, about Krell's words in the prophecy. I'm thinking, she said slowly, that maybe it's time someone showed the Council that their way isn't the only way. As night fell on Nexus Prime, Captain Arya, Elias made her choice, one that would change the fate of humanity and the galaxy forever. Morning came too quickly on Nexus Prime. Captain Elias stood alone in her quarters, examining the garment Vela had delivered. It was simple but elegant. A gray robe with blue trim, the colors of a petitioner before the Council. Elias left it on the bed and instead put on her captain's uniform. The dark blue fabric with Earthfleet insignia wasn't fancy, but it represented something important, humanity's journey to the stars on their own terms. When Vela arrived, her 6 eyes blinked, in sequence at Elias's choice of clothing. This is irregular, the Mithrai guide said. The Council expects proper attire. They summoned Captain Elias of Earth, Elias replied firmly. This is what a captain of Earth wears. After a moment, Vela nodded. As you wish. Your companions must remain here during the audience. Dr. Patel gave Elias a worried look. Be careful, Captain, Chen added. Remember what we discussed. Don't agree to anything without full explanation. Commander Wei had joined them from the ship that morning. He stood tall and offered a formal salute. The crew is with you, Captain. All of humanity is with you. Elias returned the salute, then followed Vela into the corridor. The Council chamber was an enormous room at the very center of Nexus Prime. As the doors opened, Elias had to stop herself from gasping. The ceiling soared hundreds of meters high, with a dome that somehow showed the stars outside despite being deep within the station. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species sat in rising tiers around a central platform. The gallery, Vela explained quietly. Representatives from all recognized species come to witness council proceedings. At the highest point of the chamber sat 12 massive thrones, each designed for a different body type. Some were filled with water, others with gas. One glowed with energy that hurt Elias's eyes. The High Council, said Vela, the founders who created Nexus Prime and established Galactic Order 3,000 years ago. As Elias walked forward, she noticed beings turning to watch her. Some pointed, others whispered to their neighbors. The news of a human summoned before the full council had clearly spread. "You will walk to the center platform," Vela instructed. "When the speakers call your name, you will kneel with your forehead touching the floor, then rise when permitted to speak." The center platform was a circle of polished black stone, connected to the rest of the chamber by a transparent bridge. As Elias stepped onto it, she felt strangely alone, a single human surrounded by the combined might of galactic civilization. A deep bell sounded 3 times, and the chamber fell silent. "Captain Arya Elias of Earth Vessel Defiance," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You stand before the High Council of Nexus Prime." One of the council members leaned forward, a being with tentacles where a human would have a face, its body glowing with soft blue light. When it spoke, the words formed directly in Elias's mind. "We are the Thal, eldest of the founders. For 3,000 years we have maintained the balance of the galaxy. Today, we address the matter of humanity." Another council member shifted in its throne, this one a swirling cloud of golden particles contained in an energy field. "We are the Vulith," it said, its voice like wind through trees. "We have observed your species since you first left your home system. You grow too quickly. You change too readily. You create too recklessly." A third council member, a massive insectoid with compound eyes covering most of its head, clicked forward. "We are the Nexus Mind. We calculate probabilities. We analyze patterns. The pattern of humanity is disturbing." One by one, the council members introduced themselves, each adding to the list of humanity's supposed wrongs. They showed images. In the air above the platform, Earth's history of conflict, the rapid advance of technology, the spread of human colonies across dozens of worlds. "In a mere 2 centuries since achieving faster-than-light travel," said the Thal, "your species has settled 27 systems. You have developed technologies independently that took other species millennia to create. Your minds change and adapt at a rate that threatens stability." Elias listened carefully, looking for specific charges, but there were none, only vague references to imbalance and destabilization. Finally, the Vulith announced the council's judgment. "Earth will be placed under protective quarantine for 1,000 years. All humans throughout the galaxy will return to your home system. All advanced technologies will be surrendered to council custody." "This is not extinction," added the Thal. "This is guidance. When humanity has matured sufficiently, the quarantine will be lifted." The chamber fell silent. Every eye, every sensory organ of every being, turned to Elias. "The petitioner will now kneel to acknowledge the wisdom of the council's judgment," announced the ceremonial voice. Elias stood still. In her mind, images flashed quickly. Her grandfather, who had survived the Martian colony collapse, the first human settlement on Proxima Centauri, children born on distant worlds who had never seen Earth. If she knelt now, all of humanity's future would be constrained forever. "The petitioner will kneel," the voice repeated more forcefully. Elias raised her head and looked directly at the High Council. "No," she said, her voice clear and strong in the silence. A murmur ran through the gallery like a wave. The council, members shifted in their thrones, some leaning forward in surprise. "You refuse the council's authority?" The Thal's mental voice was sharp with disbelief. "I refuse this judgment," Elias replied. "You've presented no evidence of actual wrongdoing. You fear what we might become, not what we are." "The growth rate of your species," began the Vulith. "Is natural," Elias interrupted. "We explore, we learn, we adapt. These are not crimes. Your defiance proves our concerns," clicked the Nexus Mind. "No species has refused to kneel in 700 years." Elias stood tall, feeling the weight of the moment. Billions, throughout the galaxy, were watching this broadcast. What she said next would echo across the stars. "I speak not just for myself, but for every human who has looked up at the stars with wonder instead of fear," she said. "We have no desire to dominate the galaxy, but neither will we accept artificial limits on our potential. She took a deep breath, remembering Admiral Kobayashi's words. Show them they've awakened a species. Humanity does not kneel, she declared, her voice ringing through the chamber. Not to gods, not to tyrants, and not to you. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some beings rose to their feet, shouting or making sounds Elias couldn't interpret. Others sat frozen in shock. The council members conferred urgently among themselves, their communications too fast or too alien for Elias to understand. Through it all, Captain Elias stood straight and unmoving on the black platform, a single point of calm in the storm she had created. She had made her choice. Now the galaxy would have to live with the consequences. From the gallery, a single figure watched with gleaming amber eyes. Krell of the Draconid Collective observed the chaos with something like satisfaction. The human had done what his people had failed to do centuries ago. She had challenged the unchanging order of the council. And somehow he suspected this time the outcome would be different. Take the human to detention level 6, ordered a tall Vexitari guard. His crystalline armor glinted in the harsh light of the corridor as 4 more guards surrounded Captain Elias. The council session had ended in disorder after Elias's refusal to kneel. Some council members had demanded immediate punishment, while others called for discussion. In the chaos, Elias had been quickly removed from the chamber. What about my crew? She asked as the guards led her away. They remain confined to their quarters, the guard replied coldly. Their fate will be decided later. The detention cell was small but clean, with a simple bed and washing facilities. A transparent force field served as the door, allowing guards to watch her constantly. Elias sat on the bed, her back straight, refusing to show weakness. Hours passed. Elias used the time to think, analyzing what she had learned about the council. They feared humanity not for what they had done, but for what they might become. That fear revealed weakness. The mighty council was not as secure as they pretended. On Earth, Admiral Kobayashi stared at the holographic display in shock. The broadcast from Nexus Prime had reached every human settlement across 27 star systems. Everyone had witnessed Captain Elias's defiance. She actually did it, whispered her aide. She refused to kneel. Kobayashi nodded slowly, pride mixing with fear. And now we all face the consequences. She turned to her staff. Activate Protocol Prometheus, immediately. Throughout human space, military and civilian leaders received the coded message. Hidden preparations, years in the making, began. Human ships across the galaxy powered down their standard communication systems and activated the secret quantum network that operated. Independently of council relays, military vessels moved to defensive positions around colonies. Civilian ships began evacuating the most vulnerable outposts. Ma'am, reported a young officer. We're detecting multiple Vextari enforcement vessels leaving Nexus Prime. They're projected. Course, they're heading for Sol system. Kobayashi's expression hardened. So it begins. Alert all defense stations. This quarantine won't be peaceful, it will be an invasion. Back on Nexus Prime, Dr. Patel and Marcus Chen had not been idle. While Commander Wei coordinated secretly with the crew on the Defiance, the scientist and diplomat had used their limited freedom to gather information. The archives are fascinating, Dr. Patel told Chen as they huddled in their quarters. I've found references to at least 6 other species that showed concerning growth, patterns like humanity. All of them were either quarantined or eliminated. Chen's expression was grim. What happened to the quarantined ones? They never emerged. After 1,000 years of isolation, they had either destroyed themselves or regressed technologically. Either way, they stopped being a threat. A soft chime interrupted them. The door slid open to reveal Krell, accompanied by representatives from 3 other species. A hovering, jellyfish-like Mithrai, different from Vela, a small furry being with 6 limbs, and a tall, thin creature with skin like polished metal. Don't have much time, Krell said without greeting. Your captain's defiance has created an opportunity, but the council is already moving against your homeworld. Who are you people? Chen demanded. The Coalition of Middle Realms, answered the metallic being. For centuries we have worked in secret, gathering allies among the species who recognize the Council's rule for what it is, not protection, but control. There are 17 of us now, added the six-limbed creature. Species from different tiers who have realized we will never be allowed to reach our potential under Council rule. What do you want from us? Asked Dr. Patel. Your captain showed courage, Krell said. Now we need something more. We need access to the Great Archive. Chen frowned. What's that? The true history of the galaxy, explained the Mithrai, its tentacles waving gently. Records the Council keeps hidden even from most of their own people. If we can broadcast those records across the galaxy, many more would join our cause. And how exactly are we supposed to access this archive? Chen asked. Krell's amber eyes gleamed. That's where your commander comes in. We need your ship. In her cell, Elias was surprised when the force field suddenly deactivated. Standing in the doorway was one of the council members, a Thal, its tentacled face pulsing with blue light. Captain Elias, the Thal spoke directly into her mind. I am Counselor Orcs. We must speak privately. Elias stood cautiously. I'm surprised a counselor would visit a prisoner. These are unusual times. Orcs gestured for her to follow. The monitoring systems in this corridor will experience a malfunction for exactly 7 minutes. We must use this time wisely. They walked to a small alcove where Orcs turned to face her. Your defiance has created a division in the Council not seen in centuries, the Thal said. Some see it as proof that humanity must be contained immediately. Others see something different. And, what do you see, Counselor? Asked Elias. I see a pattern repeating, Orcs replied. Long before you were born, before your species left its home planet, the Council faced another choice. The Draconids were evolving quickly, showing signs of developing abilities similar to the founding races. We quarantined them. When they resisted, we crushed them. And now you plan to do the same to us. The majority does, yes. Oryx's mental voice grew softer. But some of us have questioned this approach for centuries. The galaxy grows stagnant under our control. New ideas are suppressed. Evolution itself is denied. Elias studied the alien being, trying to understand its motives. Why are you telling me this? Because you were never meant to leave this station alive, Captain, Oryx admitted. The quarantine order was just for show, to satisfy those who still believe in our founding principles. The enforcement fleet now heading to your homeworld carries weapons capable of sterilizing a planet's surface. Cold horror washed over Elias. You're planning genocide. Not I, corrected Oryx. But yes, that is the true plan. Unless what? Unless something changes the balance of power. Something unexpected. The Thal's tentacles rippled. Your ship's quantum communication technology. We detected it despite your efforts to hide it. Your people are already preparing defenses, aren't they? Elias didn't answer, which was answer enough. Good, said Oryx. Now listen carefully. In 2 hours, there will be a station-wide power fluctuation for routine maintenance. It will last 47 seconds. During that time, security systems in Detention Block 6 will reset. Why would you help me? Elias asked. Oryx's mental voice was tinged with what might have been sadness. I am 5,000 years old, Captain. I have watched the Council drift, from its original purpose to guide and protect, into something that fears change above all else. The Thal's tentacles rippled. Perhaps it is time for the old order to face what it fears most. Change, Elias said. Exactly. Oryx turned, to leave. 2 hours, Captain, be ready. As the counselor disappeared down the corridor, Elias felt a spark of hope. She wasn't alone in this fight, and now she had a chance, however small, to escape and warn Earth before the Vextari fleet arrived. Back in her cell, Elias began to plan. The council had summoned a captain, but as Admiral Kobayashi had said, they had awakened an entire species, and soon they would discover just how dangerous that mistake had been. Exactly 2 hours after Counselor Oryx's visit, The lights in Elias's cell flickered. The force field wavered for a moment, then disappeared completely. Without hesitation, Elias stepped into the corridor. The guards were nowhere to be seen. Staying close to the wall, she made her way toward the main entrance of the detention block. She had memorized the route when they brought her in, counting steps and noting landmarks. At an intersection, she paused, listening for footsteps. Instead, she heard a familiar voice. "Captain!" Commander Wei emerged from a side corridor, followed by Dr. Patel and Marcus Chen. Elias had never been so happy to see her crew. "How did you find me?" she asked as they quickly embraced. "We had help," Wei replied, gesturing behind him. Krell stepped forward, accompanied by several other aliens. "The Coalition has operatives throughout the station," the reptilian explained, "including some in security. We need to move quickly," a six-limbed alien added nervously. "The power fluctuation will end in 30 seconds. Together, they hurried, through dimly lit corridors avoiding the main pathways. Krell led them through service tunnels and maintenance shafts rarely used by the station's regular inhabitants. "Our ship is still impounded," Elias said as they ran. "How do we get off the station?" "That's the complicated part," Krell admitted. "The Defiance is heavily guarded in the central docking bay. We'll need a diversion." They reached a small control room where several more Coalition members worked at strange consoles. A Mithrai with glowing tentacles turned to greet them. "The broadcast system is ready," it said to Krell, "but we still need the archives." "What archives?" Elias asked. Dr. Patel explained quickly. "The Great Archive, records the Council has, kept hidden for thousands of years. The Coalition believes broadcasting those records could turn many species against the Council." "I found something else," Chen added. Dr. Patel discovered evidence in the public archives that humans aren't unique. Many species would develop as we have if not artificially constrained by Council intervention. "The Founders have been selectively holding back the galaxy's potential for millennia," Dr. Patel continued, ensuring no species evolves to challenge them. Elias processed this information quickly. "So the Council fears us because we're developing naturally, without their interference?" "Exactly," Krell confirmed. "Your defiance wasn't just symbolic. It was the first time in 700 years a species has directly challenged their authority." The lights suddenly brightened as power returned to full capacity throughout the station. "Alarms will sound soon," warned the six-limbed alien. "They'll discover the captain is missing." Elias made a quick decision. "We need 2 teams. One to recover the archive data, one to create a diversion and secure the Defiance." "The archives are in the station's central core," Krell said, "heavily protected." "But I have access," came a new voice. Counselor Orcs glided into the room, causing several Coalition members to back away in fear. "I can lead a team there." Krell's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "A council member helping us? Why should we trust you?" "Because I gave Captain Elias the chance to escape," Oryx replied calmly. "And because after 3,000 years, even immortals can recognize when change is necessary." Elias studied the Thal carefully, then nodded. "Dr. Patel, Chen, go with Counselor Oryx to the archives. Commander Wei, you're with me and Krell. We'll create the diversion and secure the ship." As they prepared to separate, alarm klaxons began to sound throughout the station. "Too late," muttered Krell. "They've discovered you're missing." "Then we move now," Elias said firmly. "The confusion might help us." The central docking bay was a massive space filled with ships from countless worlds. The Defiance, small compared to many of the vessels, was surrounded by Vextari guards. From their hidden position in a maintenance tunnel overlooking the bay, Elias, Wei, and Krell watched the guards patrolling around the ship. "Too many to fight directly," Wei observed. "We don't need to fight them all," Krell said. "Just create enough chaos to reach your ship." The reptilian pulled out a small device and pressed a sequence of symbols. Moments later, alarms began blaring in a different section of the station. "Atmospheric breach in Residential Section 5. announced a calm voice over the station's communication system. All security personnel report for evacuation assistance. Half the guards around the Defiance immediately left their posts, rushing toward the fake emergency. But still too many remained. "We need something bigger," Elias said. Wei smiled slightly. "I think I can help with that." He tapped commands into a small device on his wrist. "Remember those mining drones we were using when the Vextari found us? I took the liberty of bringing a few aboard." Outside the docking bay window, small explosions suddenly appeared along the outer hull of the station. They weren't large enough to cause serious damage, but the flashing lights and emergency warnings they triggered created instant chaos. "Now," Elias ordered, and they rushed from their hiding place. The remaining guards were distracted by the explosions, giving Elias and her team a few precious seconds. They had almost reached the Defiance when a crystalline voice shouted, "Stop them!" Vextari guards turned, raising weapons. Krell moved with surprising speed, tackling the nearest guard while Wei and Elias sprinted for the ship's airlock. "Get aboard!" Krell shouted as more guards appeared. "I'll hold them off." Elias hesitated, but Wei pulled her toward the ship. "He's right, Captain. We need to get the ship ready." Once inside, they raced to the bridge. Wei immediately began the startup sequence while Elias tried to contact the archive team. "Dr. Patel, Chen, what's your status?" She called into her communicator. "We've reached the archives." Chen's voice came through, strained but excited. "The data is incredible, Captain. The Council has been hiding the truth for thousands of years. Can you broadcast it?" "Working on it now," Chen replied. "But we're trapped. Security forces are outside the door." Elias looked at the ship's displays. The Defiance was almost ready for departure, but the docking clamps still held it firmly. "In place, Wei. Can you break us free of these clamps?" The commander's fingers flew over the controls. "Yes, but it won't be gentle, and we still have to get our people aboard." A new alarm sounded, different from the others. The station's public announcement system activated, but instead of the usual calm voice, it was Chen speaking. "Attention, all beings on Nexus Prime. This is a special broadcast. The Council has hidden the truth from you for thousands of years. These records prove it." Throughout the station, on every display screen, ancient records began to play, showing how the Council had systematically suppressed technological advancement, how they had destroyed species that showed too much potential, how they had maintained their power through deception rather than wisdom. The docking bay erupted into chaos as beings of all species watched the revelations. Some stood in shock, others began fighting with security forces. "Captain!" Wei called. "Out. Look!" On a side entrance to the docking bay, Dr. Patel and Chen appeared, running toward the ship with Counselor Orcs and several coalition members. Behind them, security forces were in pursuit. "Open the airlock," Elias ordered, "and prepare for emergency. Departure!" As the archive team raced toward the ship, the station shuddered violently. Emergency lights flashed everywhere. "What was that?" Elias asked. "The Council has activated the station's quantum singularity." Oryx's mental voice entered their minds as the Thal boarded the ship. They would rather destroy Nexus Prime than lose control of the galaxy. "We need to leave. Now," Chen shouted. As he helped Dr. Patel aboard, the last of their allies made it onto the ship just as Wei activated the emergency release, breaking the docking clamps with a screech of tearing metal. The Defiance lurched free, engines firing at full power. Behind them, parts of the massive station had begun to collapse inward, drawn toward an invisible point of crushing gravity. The quantum singularity was consuming Nexus Prime from within. As they cleared the docking bay, Elias looked back at the structure that had stood for 3,000 years, now breaking apart. She felt no joy, only grim determination. "Set course. For Earth," she ordered. "Maximum speed. We need to warn them about the Vexitari fleet." The Defiance accelerated away from the disintegrating station, carrying with it not just its human crew, but representatives from a dozen species who had chosen to stand against the old order. Together they had taken the first step toward a new kind of galaxy, one where cooperation might replace domination. "What now, Captain?" asked Commander Wei as they prepared to jump. Elias looked at the diverse beings now aboard her ship, former enemies, now unlikely allies. She thought about Earth, about the coming conflict, and about what might lie beyond it. "Now," she said, "we build something better." 6 months after the fall of Nexus Prime, a new station hung in Earth's orbit. Unlike the ancient ring that had dominated galactic politics for thousands of years, this structure was smaller and simpler. Named Concordia, it featured circular chambers where representatives from different species could meet as equals. Admiral Arya Elias, promoted after her return to Earth, stood by a large window, watching vessels from dozens of worlds dock at the station. She still found it hard to believe how much had changed in half a year. "Quite a view," said Dr. Patel, joining her at the window. The xenobiologist had spent months studying the data from the Great Archive, working with scientists from other species. 527 species represented so far, more arriving every day. "How many from the old council?" Elias asked. "About half have sent representatives to the Grand Conclave," Patel replied, using the new name for the alliance that had formed in the wake of Nexus Prime's destruction. "The others have retreated to their home systems." Commander Wei approached, tablet in hand. "The quantum communication network is now active in 38 systems," he reported. "We've shared the technology freely, as promised." Elias nodded with satisfaction. Unlike the Council's controlled relay system, Earth's quantum network allowed instant communication without centralized control. It had been one of the first technologies shared with their new allies. "Any word from the outer colonies?" she asked. Wei's expression darkened. "3 more have gone silent. That makes 7. Now." Elias frowned. Not everything had gone smoothly since their return to Earth. The Vextari fleet had fractured after learning of Nexus Prime's destruction, some ships returning to their homeworlds, others continuing their mission. Those still loyal to the old Council had begun attacking isolated human settlements. "The Reclamation Fleet," Chen said as he joined them, using the name given to the hardliners determined to restore the old order. "Our intelligence suggests they're gathering forces for a major strike." "Against Earth?" Elias asked. "Most likely," Chen confirmed. "They see us as the source of the rebellion. Cut off the head, and the body dies. That's their thinking. Counselor." Orcs glided into the room, the Thal's tentacles rippling with soft blue light. As one of the few council members to join the conclave, Orcs provided valuable insight into the Founder's thinking. "They underestimate what you have created," the ancient being's mental voice reached them. "This alliance is not based on dominance as the Council was. It cannot be so easily broken." "Tell that to the colonies that have been destroyed," Wei said grimly. Dr. Patel cleared her throat. "I have news that might help." She activated a display showing complex genetic and neurological patterns. "By combining knowledge from different species' scientific traditions, we've made a breakthrough, a unified theory that explains why certain evolutionary paths lead to heightened consciousness and abilities." "The abilities that made the Founders fear us," Elias said. "Exactly," Patel nodded excitedly. "Humanity wasn't unique in our potential. We were simply the first in recent history to evade the Council's suppression long enough to begin approaching it naturally." "And now?" asked Chen. "Now we understand the process. With proper training, representatives from dozens of species could develop these abilities within a generation." Together, a young officer hurried into the room, face tense. "Admiral, we've detected a large fleet approaching the Sol system. It's the Reclamation Fleet, at least 300 ships." Elias straightened, her mind already shifting to tactical options. Earth's defenses were strong, but against 300 ships? "How long until they arrive?" she asked. 6 hours at their current speed." Elias looked at her team, then at Orcs and the other alien representatives who had gathered to hear the news. In the old days, each species would have retreated to protect their own interests, but things were different now. "Send a message to all conclave worlds," she ordered. "We stand together." 5 hours later, a remarkable sight greeted the approaching Reclamation Fleet. Instead of finding only Earth's defenses, they faced ships. From every corner of the galaxy, vessels of all shapes and sizes formed a massive defensive line protecting the Sol system. On the bridge of the Defiance, now upgraded and serving as Elias's flagship, the Admiral watched the enemy fleet slow its approach. They didn't expect this, Wei said with satisfaction. They thought they would face Earth alone. They still outnumber us, Chen pointed out, and their technology is more advanced. But we have something they don't, Elias replied. Unity. The main communication system activated as a transmission came in from the lead Vextari vessel. A crystalline being appeared on screen, its faceted, eyes cold. This is Supreme Commander Tix of the Reclamation Fleet, it announced. We demand the surrender of Arya Elias and all instigators of cosmic disorder. Comply or we will open fire. Elias stepped forward. This is Admiral Elias of Earth and the Grand Conclave. We reject your demands. The old order is finished. Then, you will be destroyed, Tix stated flatly. Instead of cutting the communication, Elias smiled. Before you fire, I suggest you speak to your crews. They might be interested in what we've discovered. She nodded to Chen, who activated a different channel, one that broadcast directly to every ship in the opposing fleet. The transmission contained the truth from the Great Archive, along with a simple message. No one needs to kneel anymore. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then something remarkable happened. One Vextari ship broke formation, its weapons powering down. Then another. And another. They're receiving our broadcast, Chen reported, excitement in his voice. The crews are refusing. Orders to attack. On the main screen, Commander Tix's crystalline face showed confusion and rage. What have you done? We've shared the truth, Elias replied simply, something the Council feared for millennia. One by one, ships from the Reclamation Fleet broke formation, unwilling to fire upon the united front before them. The revolution, that had begun with one captain's refusal to kneel, was spreading across the stars, as species throughout the galaxy stood up for the first time. 1 month later, representatives from over 700 species gathered in the main chamber of Concordia Station. At the center stood a device unlike any seen before, the combined work of scientists from dozens of worlds. The Beacon Network, Dr. Patel explained to the assembly. Once activated, it will connect all our worlds instantly, without centralized control. Knowledge, art, ideas, all will flow freely between our peoples. Elias stepped forward. The former captain, now admiral, looked across the faces of beings that had once been strangers or enemies. Now they were allies, perhaps even friends. 6 months ago, I stood before the council and refused to kneel, she said. Not out of pride or defiance, but because I believed in something better. I believed that thinking beings weren't meant to be ruled through fear, but to stand together as equals. She turned to the beacon. Today, we take the first step toward that better galaxy. Representatives from each world came forward, each adding their unique energy signature to the device. As the last one stepped back, the beacon activated, sending a pulse of blue light outward. On displays throughout the chamber, points of light appeared as distant worlds connected to the network. As the beacon pulsed with light, stretching across the void between stars, Elias thought about her journey. From a simple mining mission to standing before the council, from prisoner to leader of a new alliance. All because she had refused to kneel. The blue light reached farther and farther, connecting worlds that had been isolated for millennia. It wasn't a symbol of human dominance, but a promise of a new kind of galactic civilization. One built not on subjugation, but on the simple, revolutionary act of standing tall. Together. The end.